Alright, alright, alright. Greetings, my fellow squishy blobs of subatomic stuff. The name's Hans. Father to this overgrown jungle of plants, obsessed with teal bricks, builder of cities, and berserk for Legos. Today I'm going to talk about a very important part of Paradisa City, the table structure. I'll be showing my preliminary plans for building the tables that support the city on some 3D CAD software. And I'm also going to reveal some future plans and ideas that I have for the city, which I think you guys are going to like. So layer up those couch cushions and get comfy. And as I always like to say, onwards to the good stuff. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed my jungle dragon. And as tempting it is to say that this was my face reveal, sorry, no, I don't magically transform into a teal jungle dragon every night. So yeah, I've made it a lot more jungle-ish. I had a lot of fun changing a lot of the details and adding a bunch of plants onto the jungle dragon. And of course it's teal, so I had to get it. Alright, so for those of you who are new to my channel, today's video is about my future upcoming Lego city, Paradisa City, a tropical city of the future in the year 2060. And a lot of my previous videos talk about Paradisa City, and Paradisa City is going to be totally awesome with all its futuristic tech and ideas that I will be implementing in Paradisa City, resolving a lot of the problems and issues that we have today in real life in cities, you know, with pollution and environment and energy efficiency and all that stuff, as well as traffic. Gosh, I hate traffic. So just a quick summary for those who are new to this channel. Paradisa City, instead of trains and planes, it's going to have an underground subterranean hyperloop. And instead of cars, instead of parking lots, instead of hours of being stuck in traffic, it has this underground hyperpod transportation system. And instead of a drab, dreary buildings, it has the blend of nature and plants all over the place. When you're living in Paradisa City, it's like you're living in a city, but at the same time, you also feel like you're living in a part of nature as well. And Paradisa City is a very walkable city, so all the ground level streets aren't really streets, they are walkable pathways that are designed for just being able to walk around, stroll around, roller skate, roller blade, ride your little scooters, mopeds, go-peds, and everything that you need is within a very short walking distance. So it's a very well laid out city, none of this urban sprawl. So two videos that I highly recommend that you go watch are my new Lego road plates video and the Hyperloop video, so definitely go watch those videos right after this one if this one has piqued your interest. All right, and this is a table. My Paradisa City is obviously going to be built on a number of tables. So I'm using the SolidWorks 3D CAD program to design this. In real life, I am a mechanical design engineer, and I often use SolidWorks almost all the time. So it's easy for me to use, I know it, I like it, and I can do a lot of stuff with it. So here is a table section, and there's going to be multiple table sections that will be built for the full city layout. And this is just kind of one table. So what I've designed here is three different layers. This is the floor layer, and this will be sitting directly on the floor in my place. And this is where the Hyperloops will go. So I'll have a Hyperloop passenger terminal, and then so minifigures from the city above will take an elevator down through all these different levels to the terminal station and be able to get on board of a Hyperloop and jettison off to the next city or the next country. And so down here, I'm just going to have one Hyperloop terminal and one cargo Hyperloop terminal, which will be massive and substantial. Now the next level, all right, so this is all within the inner city. This is the Hyperpod system, and this is within a single city or metropolis of cities. They're all kind of merged together. And of course, this layer of my city will have several Hyperpod stations throughout the city, and the citizens of Paradisa City will just take an elevator down there, order up a Hyperpod, and zip off to another part of the city. Then up here, this is also a subterranean part of the city. It is just below ground level. This is sort of the basement level of Paradisa City. This is where all the autonomous roadways are, and the autonomous roadways are going to support the city itself. It's kind of the underworkings of the city. It's going to have electric autonomous vehicles, and their primary purpose, it's not for the public, their primary purpose is services, basically. So you got the emergency police services, you got emergency medical services, you got emergency fire services, and then you also have construction services. And this is also where all the shipping and delivery happens. So all the Amazon services, DHL and UPS and FedEx are all going to have their autonomous delivery vehicles zipping around underneath the city and delivering packages to all the businesses and to everybody. All right, and then later on I'm going to talk about how I'll go about building the final floor level or ground level of the Paradisa City. So let's take a look at the full table structure. So I've got a 3x3. There's going to be about 9 tables that all come together. So a lot of people people, in order to have access to their city, are creating these manholes. They're creating their cities that has a big chunk missing in the very middle of the city, and what they'll do is they'll crawl underneath their tables, pop up, and stand there, and they're able to work on the far reaches of their city. Whereas if there wasn't one, they wouldn't ever be able to reach it. What I'm doing is, since this is sitting on the floor itself, I'll have these felt pads so I can slide these tables out of the way. And so what I can do is I can grab, say, like these 2 tables, or maybe these 4 tables, and just slide them over, depending on where I need to get access to, and be able to build there. I really didn't like the idea of having a big giant manhole in the middle of my city. I want a very cohesive looking city that's just jam-packed with buildings. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do, is that the city is going to be built on these tables that can kind of slide out of the way. All I have to do is just kind of grab it and pull on it and move it over a few feet, and then I can kind of wiggle in there and get access to over here. And because of that, that's one of the reasons why you see this piece of plywood down here, is because this is where the Hyperloop stations are going to be, and all the running Hyperloop track is going to be. And so when I slide the table, I also need those sections of the Hyperloop as well as the Hyperpod and all that stuff to come with it. The other reason why I have this piece of plywood here directly on the very bottom is because I also have a robo vacuum that comes around and starts cleaning all the dust and dirt that's on the floors. And it's not the most precise robo vac in the world. It likes to crash and bump into things, and I definitely can't have it crashing into my Hyperloop stations and track that are going to be down underneath here. So this will help act as a barrier. I'll also add an extra little lip right here so that the robo vac can't just drive up over it. So for each of these tables, basically this is just half-inch plywood for all 3 layers, and then this is a standard lumber beam found here in the United States, which is what we call a 2x4. I don't recall what the height is from here to here, but it's going to be dialed in exactly to whatever the Lego build height of the Hyperloop area is. And just for uniformity, I'm making these 2 levels exactly the same height. Now, the table dimensions itself are designed in millimeters, so it's 1152 millimeters by 896 millimeters, and that's because Lego is designed in millimeters. So 1 stud brick is approximately 8 millimeters. Obviously, it's slightly smaller than 8 millimeters due to tolerancing. Brick is also 9.6 millimeters in height, which is not an easy, pretty number to work with, but that's what I'm going to be doing. And so these dimensions are based on a grid of 16 by 16 Lego plates. So I don't remember the exact count, but it basically comes out to be several 16 by 16 Lego plates this way, as well as this way. If I line it up on this edge, by the time I stack them all the way over to here, it will line up exactly on that edge. Now I'm going to build these tables myself, and then wherever I'm going to add a terminal station for either the Hyperpod system or the Hyperloop terminal, I'll just cut a large hole into the table so I can build my elevator shafts that go up and down between the different layers. Okay, so here is what kind of the basic layout of what Paradisa City is going to look like. Yeah. So this is the size of the room that it's going to fit into, and this is approximately 9 feet by 12 feet. I've still got to resolve some of this overlap here, but here is kind of the basic layout. Now, this is not exact. The placement of these buildings is not officially decided. The placement of this road is not officially decided. The preliminary planning of building the tables themselves, as well as giving myself an idea of some of the features that I'm going to be including. I drew this down here, and this basically represents a terminal for the Hyperpod system, and there will be several of them underneath here based on where the city is. The other thing to keep in mind is that I consider this to just be a small section of Paradisa City. In reality, Paradisa City is going to be this huge city, and so each of these grid pieces represents a 16 by 16 Lego plate. 4 of them will represent a 32 by 32 plate, and of course a 3 by 3 section will represent a 48 by 48 plate. I just kind of drew in some basic boxes to kind of represent buildings. Here, maybe you might recognize this. That's my Paradisa City Hospital. Yeah. And this is the new apartment building that I have been working on. It won't actually have that Paradisa City on there. And so these kind of represent modular buildings. This road here that you're looking at right now, this is the scooter roadways. On the ground level of Paradisa City, as I mentioned in my other videos, I've got 2 types of mobility on the ground level. One is these roads that are are specifically for, electric bicycles zipping along at 20 or 30 miles an hour, motorcycles, go-karts, quad bikes, and little vendor cart food trucks and mobile vendors. So obviously in a bigger city, there will be a much more extensive layout of these roads, but because this is just a small section of Paradisa City, I'm only dedicating, enough space for the road to go in two different directions. All right, so I've never mentioned this before, but I'm going to have a river in my city. I'm going to have these massive cliffs kind of surrounding this right back corner of Paradisa City. There's going to be a river that flows out to the ocean. There's going to be a beach area right here. There's these cliffs. Up on the cliffs is going to be a waterfall that's going to be dropping straight down to the river right there. I really love this idea. I came up with the idea for the waterfall about a year ago. I had officially decided I wanted to build a Lego city back in 2019, and all these ideas of mine just started pouring in, and I've been jotting them down and creating a list, something I'm really excited about. I would love to make this with real, actual running water. That's not going to be the case, unfortunately, unless I'm able to move to a better place where I can officially dedicate building this in such a way where I can seal this off from the flow of water, and then I could use some aquarium pumps that could pump the water up to here and let it drop down, and then I could use the actual floating boats because there's going to be a little marina in here somewhere. So yeah, I wish I could, but unfortunately with where I live now, it's too risky, and it's just not going to quite work out. So as far as these cliffs back here, I'm obviously going to build some sort of wooden structure. It's not going to be what you see here. It's not going to be this. I was only adding these little layers just to give myself an idea as to like the different floor heights of the high-rise buildings. So obviously my Paradisa City Hospital is 9 levels above ground, so the cliffs are going to be a little bit higher than that. Over here is going to be my Ninjago and Chinese Asian influence part of the city, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to have the Ninjago City Gardens, the Ninjago City, and all that stuff. I'm going to have a bridge that goes across here. You're probably wondering what this is. Well, this is another idea that I've had in my head for quite some time. What I wanted to do was to build an ancient castle structure kind of protruding out of the cliffs. I'm kind of now thinking that maybe instead of a European type castle, it would be more of an ancient castle of Asian heritage, which would be awesome. Kind of makes sense because I'm going to have the Asian heritage section of the city over there. And the other thing too was I wasn't originally planning on putting it around the waterfall. I was planning on putting it, say, somewhere over here. And then I also wanted to have like this crumbling, half destroyed aqueduct, or even a castle wall that kind of just bisected straight through the city. And then I would also build some like high-rise buildings that kind of incorporated that castle wall as part of the architecture of the buildings that it kind of went through or sliced through, or buildings that were kind of designed onto this aqueduct or castle wall. Still not quite sure if I'm going to try and pull that off yet. So you're probably wondering what these two blue pillars are, and these are at the entrance of the water, the river, or the bay, however you want to call it. These two blue pieces are actually going to be these massive statues or mechs, probably about the size of the Monkey King mech. Very tall, grandiose looking statues, so that when the ships that are sailing inwards, they're kind of passing below these two massive statues, and one's going to be like a warrior, the other one's going to be a female warrior or something like that. So I'm very excited about these. Now, one thing to note is that these parts of the city, this whole back wall right here, these cliffs, are not going to happen for a very long time. When I first start building the tables, and when I first start building a city, it's probably going to expand from this corner on over. It'll probably take me quite a while to get to these sort of builds. And then up here, it's just going to be a lot of vegetation. It's supposed to kind of represent a mountainous plateau that goes off. Actually, these cliff walls are going to be very much like how the valley of Yosemite National Park is. If you haven't seen Yosemite National Park, if you ever have the chance to go see it, I definitely recommend to go and visit. It is an absolutely beautiful national park. It's so grandiose. Like when you drive down through that valley and you just look up at these sheer granite walls that just tower, almost feels like a mile above your head. It's a very awe-inspiring sight, and I absolutely love it. So when I build these cliff walls, I have a very specific rock structure in mind. So I'm very excited. So I've got ideas in my head on how I want to build the rock structures, and yeah, and even though it's going to be quite some time before I get around to it, maybe I'll build some prototypes or mock-ups of it in the near future, but yeah, it's going to be a while before I get around to that. All right, so another awesome feature that I'm very excited to talk about is here on the beach area. So Lego has been releasing a lot of these fairground sets. You You can build a fairground with all these fairground rides like the Ferris wheel and these spinning rides and stuff like that. And last May, I came up with this idea of my own. I've already mentioned it in my discussion board on my YouTube channel. What I'm going to be building is a music festival. I'm a big fan of large music festivals. I know Europe has some awesome, amazing, massive music festivals. I myself have been to the Coachella Music Festival in Southern California many years in a row, and I absolutely love it. And that's where I got the inspiration. So in this section of my city, I'm going to build an amazing music festival with a couple of music stages, crowds of minifigures that are rocking out, dancing their heart out to some EDM music, stuff like that. And with the new Lego video minifigures and bandmates that have come out, they could not have picked a more perfect time to have released those, because I mean, they just came out with these awesome sets that I can now convert them into pieces for my Paradisa City Music Festival, which will be like right on the beach. Oh, and yes, these 16 by 16 plates represent the beach area of Paradisa City. Now, the water is going to basically kind of come up to right about this line here. All right, so one other thing that's interesting to note is that most of these kind of roadways between buildings, they're not roads actually. They're what I call the walkable pathways. Casually walk around and just enjoy the city, enjoy the nature. Maybe you live 3 or 4 blocks away from your university, so all you got to do is just grab your bike and ride on down there, or just walk and take a stroll. And all these walkable pathways are just going to be covered in these tropical plants that make these walkable pathways just feel like you're part of nature. However, there is one rule that I have in Paradisa City, and that is that 2 different types of modes of transportation are not allowed to intersect each other. And so the whole reason for that is, you know, anytime that cars have to stop so that pedestrians can cross the street, it creates a bottleneck, it creates a traffic jam, cars can't flow, people can't flow, and then you've got people that are risking their lives to jaywalk or cross the street, and you got people who just want to get about their day and go to their destination. And the other thing too is the psychology behind being able to get people to walk around is people want to feel safe when they walk around, and they're less likely to walk around if you constantly have high-speed traffic that intersects their pathway and where they want to go. People are less likely to walk. This is where anytime a walkable pathway has to intersect my scooter roadways, there's no red lights or traffic lights. The scooter roadways will go directly over the walkable pathway, and the walkable pathway will go directly underneath the scooter roadways. So the scooters and the motorcycles and all that stuff never have to stop, and the people who are walking around, they never have to stop, and it is a completely smooth operation. I'm not showing it right now, but the walkable pathways will kind of dip into the ground just a little bit, so they kind of meet each other halfway. So this goes halfway under, this one goes halfway over. You get the full clearance height for minifigures to walk underneath. All right, so the big mystery that a lot of you have been asking me about is, how do I plan on building this upper structure? Since the table only goes up to here, how do I plan on building all up here? I'm going to talk about several different ways that I plan on going about it. I've kind of revealed one already, and that is the Paradisa City Hospital has a basement level already. The basement level of the hospital sits directly on the table itself, and then there's the floors that go from the ground level on up. And what I'll be doing is, for all the walkable pathways that go between the buildings, they're going to be suspended. I'll build this walkable pathway, and I'll have features on the buildings themselves that allow me to place it down without even having to snap it down. It'll support these walkable pathways. Now, there's some buildings that aren't going to have basement levels. I'm not going to build basement levels for all of the buildings. So let's say this is a modular building. It's not going to have a basement level, but what I could do is I could build a separate business down here in the autonomous area. It'll basically support the modular building up above it. So it's not really a basement, it's a different building, a sub-level building in itself. And the perfect example of that is the Treads Tuning Shop. I'm going to convert the Treads Tuning Shop into a automotive shop that basically converts old classic cars into electric drivetrains of the future with autonomous driving. Let's say I can put the treads tuning shop on a full 32 by 32 base plate. Up above it would be like the corner garage or any other modular building. So that's the second way. So the first way is a dedicated basement that's part of the building itself. The second way is a separate building that is on the basement itself, and then up above it, it supports anything that's built above it. A third way is I will use bricks. I'm just going to build a brick wall underneath, and it will support the buildings above it. One of the ideas that I have using Duplo pieces, which are strong and stout and sturdy, they're much bigger pieces, and so I could build a large section of Duplo that will support the buildings up above it. And the fourth way is I will build a block of wood, and then around that block of wood, I can build a Lego wall. I can just use plates oriented so that the studs are facing to the side, just kind of dress it up with Legos that way. There might be small portions of the city that won't have autonomous roadways or a basement level directly underneath it, and in that case, I may just build a section of the table that goes up to that level and supports anything that's built on this level here. So I'll kind of figure that out and kind of add that onto these tables after the fact or as I'm going about. Another thing that I'm doing is to have different levels to the city. So this whole section right here would be this level, and then back here I could raise this up by say 3 or 4 bricks in height, and then maybe even over here closer to the cliff walls this could also be a higher elevation than this section, and it would just kind of give it a more realistic terrain look to it. Alright, so what I've got here is how I'm going to show you the 5 different methods of building from the tabletop, which is the autonomous roadways level, and then up to the ground level. And so the first way is that in some sections of the city there's not going to be any sort of underground area, and so what I'll do is I'll just build a table up at the top, and then of course I'll build my ground level up there. The second way is that a lot of these high-rise buildings, like my hospital, are going to have a basement level, and that will support the height of the building up above. Buildings will have bricks that will jut out of the walls and support the walkable pathways that are traversing between all the buildings. And then the third method is I'll just build small shops that will go in the basement level area based on like 16 by 16 or 32 by 32 builds. So say like this treads tuning, remocking this to be a 32 by 32, and I'm going to turn it into an auto shop that basically converts old classic fossil fuel running cars into these beautiful classic cars that run on retrofits of battery electric vehicles. And that will be what supports a modular building up above it. And of course I'll add sections of bricks that will kind of stick out, and then it'll support the walkable pathways that are running between the different buildings. And the fourth way is to provide structure underneath buildings that don't have a basement, is to use Duplo bricks. So here I've got a wall of Duplo bricks, and these are 1 by 2 by 2 in Duplo size brick facade bricks, and I've been slowly collecting. And so here you can see that this would be a structural wall, and I could build this to be 32 by 32, and it'll go directly underneath the building. And I also have these little bricks that are sticking out on top, which will be used to set the roads down on top of, or not roads, but be used to set the walkable paths down on top of. And the fifth method that I could do is to basically just grab some big chunks of wood, like a thick block, or maybe some 2x4s kind of screwed together, create a solid chunk of wood that would support the buildings above it. And then what I would do is to just kind of hide the wood, I would just add some 16 by 16 plates, or maybe even the new road plates, to kind of cover up the block of wood and kind of make like a underground wall right there. Alright, I also wanted to show you guys some updates that I did to the Hyperloop shuttle, which I'm very excited about. And in my original Hyperloop video, I was using a different nose piece for the very front of this Hyperloop, which was the new airplane nose piece right here. And it wasn't that good looking. It kind of gave the Hyperloop a airplane look to it, and of course Hyperloops don't look like airplanes, and they don't even have front windows. So I'm really happy to have found a much better solution. So basically what I did was I took one of the new tail pieces and flipped it upside down to create the nose piece for the Hyperloop. And this has got to be one of the craziest building techniques that I have ever done, by taking a large piece like this and flipping it upside down and somehow attaching it to studs that are right side up. As you can see, what I did was I used a 2x4 jumper plate, and then on the nose here I'm using the 2x2 round with a hole in the stud. So this is the only thing that is holding it in place when I snap it down, but it works well. So I guess kind of the disadvantage to that is you've now got a big 4x4 section of anti-studs right here on the top, which looks kind of awkward, but you know, I'm okay with it it because this nose looks way better. It looks way sleeker than that airplane windshield did. Now the other thing is that there were a couple of studs right here on either side of the 2x2 jumper. And of course I needed to use a tile to cover that up. And what it was, it kind of messed up this little spot right here. I'm using some 2x3 angle plates to match the shape of the nose, which work out quite nicely, but because I needed to use tile on tile, I wasn't able to use the 2x3 angle plates right there. So in the end, it kind of has this slight nostril sort of indent to it, but it's subtle enough that I'm okay with it. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it's better than what it was before. Yeah. The other thing I really like is I've added some cool color stripes to it here. So in my previous mock-up, this didn't have any cool color stripes to it, so I really liked having to add these color stripes. So what I did was I've got the bright yellowish green right there, I've got a teal stripe, I've got a dark azure stripe, and then I've got the medium azure stripe right there. Now unfortunately in the very back, I am using these hinging pieces right here for the entrance and exit of the Hyperloop, and they only come in white. I think Lego's only made these in dark green for the old cargo planes and in white. I definitely don't think they've made these in the medium azure color. So what I'm kind of doing here is I'm just kind of having this white color stripe kind of zigzag across it and trying to imply this is an intentional painted color pattern that's on here. The other awesome thing is I'm able to get a few extra seats in here. So in my previous mock, it was a 16-seat Hyperloop shuttle, and now I've got 20 seats in here. So even more capacity, which I love it. Originally the door was right here, and I had moved the door back to here, and that was to do with the color coordination of the white. Now in my original Hyperloop video, I had said that I was still going to work on finding a way to mount the luggage for all the passenger carry-on luggage. That is still something that I need to do. For now, it actually imitates the real-life shape of Hyperloop shuttles that are currently in development and very sleek, and they don't have windows. So other than these anti-studs up here, which is not perfect, and the fact that this is not perfect right here, and the fact that I can't continue the medium azure colors, otherwise I'm really happy with how it came out, and it's a big improvement from what it was before. Here is a little sampler video of my Lego City. Now obviously this is very generic. I just kind of mashed all these buildings together. This is not the official layout. These are not the real tables. These are just a bunch of IKEA shelves laid down on the floor. But I just wanted to show you guys kind of what a Paradisa City would sort of look like if I had already gotten started. So we got the Palace Cinema. So what we've got here is the scooter roadway that runs between the Palace Cinema and the corner garage. And it has the overpass that allows the walkable pathway to go underneath so that people don't have to worry about getting hit by motorcycles. And we've got the rooftop bar on top of the Palace Cinema. And then running along the back here of the city is another major thoroughfare of the scooter roadway. And I've just got it jam-packed with motorcycles and scooters and little golf carts. Oh, and I wanted to say that I have a new tree build, which I'm really liking, and it is using the mast for the pirate ships. It's also using the leaf pieces with the new colors from the Ninjago City Gardens. And down here is the Parisian restaurant. And of course, we've got the massive 9-story tall Paradisa City Hospital. Down in here is the nice little walkable pathways with the tropical tree right in front of the corner garage. And there you have it. Alright, and I also wanted to show an additional update that I made to the corner garage a while back ago. So in the comment section, a guy by the name of TM gave me the suggestion to add a carpet to kind of break up the monotony of the dark tan tiles. As I was adding the teal carpet, I remembered I had the teal tiles from the Chinese New Year set from 2020. I created this Oriental rug, and I absolutely love how that came out. And so I would not have thought of that if it hadn't been for TM's suggestion to add the carpet. So thanks, TM. That was a great suggestion. I absolutely love how this turned out. I think it was a great idea. I'm not really a carpet person myself. I think they just collect too much dust, but I'm really glad that I added that in there. And having those Oriental tiles to make it into an Oriental rug. Alright, so let me know what you guys think of my faux or little mock-up of Paradisa City. When I get the tables built and start actually putting it together, that'll be more final. But let me know what you guys think. Yeah. Alright, so for next weekend, I'm thinking about either doing a video on some pickup trucks or maybe even the Lego limousine that I built. In the meantime, I'm still working on my Grand Emporium. I've kind of run into some trouble spots there. I might have to give up on a particular feature that I was trying to accomplish. I'm also still working on the high-rise building. I'm not making a ton of progress on that simply because all my time is going into the Grand Emporium. For the next modular expansion, I'm planning on starting on the brake bank pretty soon. I've got some cool ideas for that, which I'm really excited to start working on. Also, want to thank you guys for patiently waiting because I haven't released a video in 4 weeks. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. I'll check you guys later.